Welcome to The Mountain Gardener with your host, Ken Lane. Gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and local advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome your host, Ken Lane.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener. Your host, Ken Lane, talking about the landscapes of northern Arizona. And fine, do you think is spring here? Is summer about to come? What's going on with the weather? My gosh, this last week we had a couple frost events. In fact, what was that? Saturday through Monday of this last week, we had frost warnings. In fact, if you're part of our garden club, you got an email and a Facebook and an Instagram post. Instagram's kind of clunky for notices or garden alerts, but Facebook's very good. And of course, email is very good. So we were monitoring the weather really closely. Of course, we've got a lot of inventory, hundreds of thousands of dollars of plants, thousands of trees and shrubs and perennials and vegetables and herbs. And I don't want to lose them just because it got cold one night. And so we've got greenhouses up and we closed things, buttoned things up. We covered things with sheets late on Saturday. And so we were hoping we wouldn't have to do that. It's a lot of work to cover 2 acres of plants. I just potted up or rooted out the hanging baskets that will be hung in downtown Prescott here this weekend. They're going up. And so they're freshly potted. They were looking so good. They're perfect. I want to make all the downtown merchants super proud of the baskets that are hang up and bloom all season long. The last thing I wanted was to have frost take out some of them. And so we covered them all up with sheets and protected, watered things really well. And then real late, kind of that evening, I got home and went, oh, dang it. I forgot to let our garden club members know. There's like 10,000 of you that are kind of part of our newsletter, kind of track videos. We shoot, here's what's blooming today. Here's how you grow tomatoes when it's time to grow tomatoes. Here's how you get lilacs to rebloom. Here's how you get roses to rebloom. Here's a summer. Here's some ground covers for whatever's timely and appropriate for that season. We put together garden column or videos. Well, another benefit of that program is I'll let people know going, oh, we're worried here at the garden center. We think you should be worried too. Here's what to do to protect your plants from frost. And so we did start to see frost damage late Sunday and then Monday. So things got burned. So what happens is you get your tomatoes or your peppers or basil starting to grow, or those new zinnias that you put out, whatever it is, a new growth is coming. Then they get cold. Some plants have a lot of antifreeze in them. And so they don't mind the cold. They're going, I don't care. I like the cold. Bring it on. In fact, I'll bloom more when it's cold. Some plants have 0 antifreeze. And so if they even look at that plant cold, if it's under 50 degrees, they start to get damaged. They slow down. And so you're seeing some black leaves show up on the top of your plants. That's only one thing. That's frost damage. So if you see that, you can usually prune your way out of that. So just pick off those damaged leaves. And as the frost kind of comes and lights on top of that plant, usually it's just the top of the plant gets burned. If it gets bad enough, you folks on the ridge lines, you're in let's say down towards a valley, a dry wash. That cold air settles and starts running down the washes, and things that are closer to that at the low end of a neighborhood can get colder. You'll feel that as you walk up and down a neighborhood. You'll feel the temperature changes as you go up and down streets. That's what's happening. And so if those plants got damaged, usually you can pick those off, or if it's damaged enough, if it gets damaged all the way back to the roots, it's not coming back, folks. I mean, it's just call it. You planted a little bit too early and it's all over. I had some folks going, but I planted after Mother's Day. It's what's going on here? I'm going, well, Mother's Day is the 100-year average. 100 years of data. It lands on May 8th, exactly here in Prescott. I think it's May 10th for you folks in Prescott Valley, and I think it's about that for Chino Valley. I don't track you folks in Payson and Kingman and all the other areas, but it fluxes that first week in May plus or minus a couple weeks. That's 100 years of data. That means 50 of those years it was the end of April. The other 50 of those years, it was the end of May. Well, this year it's the end of May, and so it just caught us. So if you're watching your weather or you're part of the garden club, this is the benefit to track, to like the Facebook page on for Waters Garden Center. And when we make a post like that, it'll come up and it'll just go, oh, frost alert. Here's what to do. Had a video on how to cover things, what to cover with. So you really don't use plastics when you're trying to keep cold off. Sometimes plastic does more damage than less. So you want a breathable material like burlap or sheets or blankets or hats of all things. That someone posted a picture going, oh, look, I took care of my plants. They just took their hat collection and threw it over top of their plants. Hilarious how creative gardeners are. That's awesome. So anyway, that's what's going on. Windstorms, cold, frost damage, and now it's beautiful. So if you did get a little damage, the roots that are remaining, they will come back with a vengeance. They'll just really, some of our crepe myrtles, they were looking so good. They were flushing fast, new growth, starting to bud up. Well, crepe myrtles, they do not like spring. They like summer. They want it to be 100 degrees out, and they're just happy as can be. Hotter. Take a blow dryer to them. If it's 100 and you put a blow dryer, they just go, oh, I'm going to bloom even more for you. So they like the heat. They don't like the cold. And so they got zipped on top of the plant. Big, bushy 5-gallon plants. These are glorious. They're beautiful. We just trimmed them up real quick, gave them a haircut, fertilized them. We actually fertilized them with Flower Power is what we used on ours. It's a water-soluble fertilizer we make here at the garden center. And they will flush super fast. I'll have to set new flower buds and new leaf buds. But they'll do that really quickly because now the soil's warm. It's warming up faster. And they've got that full root structure to take in all those nutrients and just push that new leaf growth. And so it'll happen fast. So if you had some damage, fertilize them, and they'll come out of it pretty quick. Pick off that damaged leaves, and you should be good to go pretty fast. So another one, if you've got other dead stuff, if it went right back to the ground, though, man, I hate to tell you this, it's probably not going to come back. That's the same way with some of your drought damage stuff. I'm seeing a lot of folks shooting me pictures, bringing in samples. It's like a parade at the gardens, little baggies of damaged things or photos of their dead Italian cypress or juniper or evergreen spruce, whatever. If it's dead at this point, if it's got dead branches, cut those things back. That's called winter burn or winter kill. And so through the winter, it got dry, and then there was a cold event. And again, that antifreeze I mentioned when we started the program out, that antifreeze is pushed up through the structure of that plant as long as it's hydrated. If it gets dry, it can't push that antifreeze up, and so it will sacrifice the outer tips and try to keep the core of that plant alive. If it gets bad enough, it'll actually push right back down to the ground. So I'm seeing a lot of examples of evergreens where only the very bottom layer is alive, the whole top is dead. That top is not going to come back at this point. You just got to commit to cutting it back. And so if you've got maple trees or aspens or fruit tree, whatever it is, you've got dead branches right now, cut those off, fertilize what's left. So I'm seeing lots of cores of plants starting to push new leaves, fertilize it, water it real deep, and encourage what's left, what's going to really grow fast. The problem with evergreens is they don't do that. That's more your deciduous things or leafy types of plants. They'll tend to come back stronger, either from a sucker at the base or from the core, the main branch structure. Evergreens, it might take decades for it to actually recover from that. Now, maybe I'll have time to... What happened was it's been dependent on those drip systems. So the drip kept the very bottom base alive, but there wasn't enough moisture through the winter to keep the top section alive. And so you're seeing a lot of tops die out of things. Those tops, cut them off. And then if you like what's left, fertilize it and get it to grow. If you don't like what's left, pull it out of the ground. And I know where you can buy a new one, Waters Garden Center. Anyway, I hate to tell you, folks, but it's time to call it on some of these plants that got winter burned. got a lot of questions coming in store. Lisa Waters Lane coming in right after this.
You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with Ken Lane, owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him every week for timely garden advice right for the gardens. Visit Ken where he can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
Look, if your mom, wife, or mother-to-be enjoys dead, cut flowers and the peace that comes when dining with all those kids, then by all means, take her to your favorite buffet, rather than some piece of plastic.
But if she really loves her garden, a gift card from Waters makes perfect sense. In reality, you're giving her 90 minutes of peace and quiet while she shops for her own flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, the place where people who love their gardening moms love to shop. Waters' companion plants in May are Vining Akebia, Indian Hawthorn, Prescott Sunshine Geraniums, and Purple Robe Locusts.
Incredible long clusters of purple flowers in May that look just like wisteria flowers hanging from this local bloomer.
The 8-inch fragrant flowers cover the tree profusely.
Super hardy and drought tolerant with a brisk growth rate of 2 feet in 1 year.
It's just the perfect backyard shade tree.
You'll find the shadiest trees here at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You've been listening to Ken Lane, the Mountain Gardener. Green thumbs learned while working in the Family Garden Center. Now welcome back to the Mountain Gardener.
And we are back. Lisa Waters Lane's in the studio, here to answer your garden questions. So welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
So the internet went down this week.
Sunday, right?
I think it was last week. Yeah, like it totally went down like for the day. And retailers, if you got a computer system, you're using, like credit cards. We processed, 1,000 credit cards with no internet. So we broke out remember the old knuckle busters? Mm-hmm. Put the card in, slide this big slide over the card. It kind of imprints it, slide it back. And
but you know what's different now?
What?
You remember the old cards had the raised numbers?
Oh, yeah.
Did you do that?
Oh.
New cards don't have raised numbers.
Kidding me. Doggone it.
So you can't use the knuckle buster anymore. You actually have to write it all down.
Well, there we go. What we found was it was a rocking day. Sunday, the internet went down and people came in and going, well, the internet went down. We thought we'd go to the garden center. And by the time we get back, we're hoping it'll be up again. So we saw an increase in sales. Mm-hmm. Just because gardeners were out from behind their screens and in the gardens.
It was nice. It was a good day. Good day.
It was a good day. Yeah, a nice sunny day. Mm-hmm. So, garden question. Anything going on that's super, super interesting besides bugs, death, and decay? I want to inspire people.
That's true. We did have a few people had put out their tender tomatoes and peppers, and a few people kind of had some black tomatoes and peppers. And the question of the day has been, will they come back?
I sort of answered that the first part of the show. But yeah, pick off the dead leaves, fertilize them. I'd really fertilize them with the Flower Power or Root and Grow if you got some of that. These are a couple organic kind of fertilizer you could throw in there to really wake them up fast, or they'll keel over dead.
You'll know really quick.
But at least get them to decide. Don't sit there for 3 weeks while they decide whether they're going to grow or not. As a gardener, you need to make the call and just, I want to wait for this to come out, or I don't want to wait. I want tomatoes like before November.
Mm-hmm. Because our season really isn't dramatically long. So you got to make hay while the sun shines.
You want to make hay.
There you go.
Or tomatoes. If they got nipped by the frost.
Right. Well, Tom does have a question. So he's got a big piece of property, and he said the red ants are just taking over in the yard. How do you take care of those guys?
So red ants are a challenge, and they're actually easy, especially the big ant hills. What you want to do is that queen is underneath. You got to go for the queen. If you get the queen, you got the whole colony because they just die out. Mm-hmm. And so, but the queen is about 3-4 feet underneath the ground. So you need to put a bait down that the other ants will pick up, take down and go, look, I found this special nugget of morsel just for you. Here, eat, feast, and be happy. And she goes, I'm not so happy after eating this. Keels over. And And then once that happens, the ants just die from attrition. And so there's a product here at the garden center called Come and Get It. Come and Get It it's an organic. I think it's spinosad.
It is.
Is that what it is? Yeah, it's spinosad. It's a fancy new bacterial thing that they feed, and they get sick to it. So it's like a viral. You're infecting a virus into the colony, and it just goes to the colony. And so Come and Get It, sprinkles it on, and if a bird eats it, not going to hurt them. Your dogs get it on their paws and then lick their paws, not going to hurt them. So it just goes after very selective ants, not big ants, not just the red ones.
Okay.
Well, not the carpenter ants, not the little tiny ants that get in your closets and this kind of stuff. Just red ants, highly, highly effective. So if you got other kinds of ants, come talk to us. We can show you which one's best for that ant. But for red ants around, which are active right now, Come and Get It obliterates them.
So it's not an instantaneous death. They're not going to disappear tomorrow. It does take
Couple days.
a few days.
Yeah, a couple days. You'll see some dead ants right away. But for the entire colony, including all of I have noticed, so when we were in Skull Valley, I was using this, and had lots of ant hills out on the farm. Every once in a while, they would come back in about 2 weeks. And I think what that was, the eggs, they take out the colonies, but then the eggs would hatch a few days later. They'd finally mature and come out. So I'd see them come back. Sometimes I'd have to rebait maybe a couple weeks afterwards. Not always. I would think right now you're catching them early enough you wouldn't have to, but just something to be aware of, personal experience, kind of what hurts, what works.
Okay, because those red ants are nasty.
They can bite you and really leave a mark, yeah.
So Elaine has a 5-year-old autumn blaze maple. It started to leaf out this year, but it only leafed towards the trunk.
Yeah.
She wants to know what happened. Is there a way to save it?
So it's saved because it's growing. That's good. It's just the heart of it is just alive. So those dead branches coming out, extending, the only way to get past that is to prune off those old branches that were damaged by winter. It got dry, and so it self-pruned itself back to keep the core alive, the heart of the plant alive. And so you'll cut those off, fertilize it, water it real deep, and encourage that new growth to really, you want to push for autumn blaze maple. With a massive root structure, you should be able to push 3, 4, 5 feet of growth this year. If you just encourage it, it'll grow its way past that. And so that one's encouraging. There's some alive. Some of them have actually reset down to the ground, and the suckers are coming down right from the base. That sucker is coming up. There's no way you've lost the plant. Just it's worthy of a chainsaw. Start over. So anyway.
Yeah, a lot of that happening this year.
That's just when it's just a drought year, and you haven't tweaked or tuned up your irrigation. That will happen.
That is true. All right, Lori would like to put a rose tree into a pot.
Nice.
She wants to know what size pot she needs and how frequently will she need to water that rose.
I have noticed, Lori, you're not allowed to use the word pot on the internet or Facebook because they'll take it right down off the feed. So you're instantly container. What size container? Not what size pot can I grow? Anyway, just personal experience again. Kind of what I found.
Who would have thought?
A rose bush you can grow for many, many years in a good sized pot. Now with containers, thank you, dear. You always make me better. You keep me honest. You make me an honest man. Yeah, never mind. Anyway, get an ant crawling out your face. Got it.
An ant?
Yeah,
Who just talking about?
I know. Hey, anyway, only the people watching the video can see that. People tuned in from the radios, they don't see what's going on.
I was just amused.
She's got ants coming out of her hair. This big gold hair. Anyway, where were we at? Lori. So a rose, I would say go at least minimum 18-inch size across and deep. If you can go 20, 24-inch, bigger pot, the better. And it's all about the soil quantity. It doesn't matter the shape. It could be a tall, a skinny pot or a low fat kind of squatty pot. You just want at least that kind of soil volume, at least 1.5 by 1.5 of potting soil. It will grow a rose for many, many years, even a bigger rose. I would say up to a hybrid tea, a floribunda. many of the shrub roses, even the carpet roses. If it's a really big, if you want to grow a vining type climbing rose, you want to trend towards the bigger size of that, 24 inches across. And then if you're going to water midwinter, if you water that pot, especially if a cold front's coming through, and before the cold gets here, water that container, and it will help that plant go right through like it was nothing. You don't have to cover it. You don't have to bring it close to the house. You can just leave it right out there. A rose bush is really robust. Just make sure you water it midwinter, and it will grow for decades. We've got some that are ancient. I mean, I'm starting to get bored with them, going, it's time for you guys to go. I want a yellow one instead of a red rose. So that's the size. Come and see us. We just got a fresh load. Our summer mix of pottery just came in. We can help you select, show you the right size, and that goes with your plant.
I think we got time for another quick one. So Dan would like to know if you can put a Kimberly Queen fern outside for the summertime.
You can put a fern outside. This is a house plant. It's a tropical indoor plant. But yeah, you can go outside. No sun. So a covered patio, covered porch, covered deck, where it's warm, but not direct sun. Maybe a little morning sun would be fine, but that midday heat, that's going to make a fern that likes a more humid kind of climate, going to make it struggle. So yeah, bring it out, keep it in the shade, and it will thrive for you. All right, Ken and Lisa Lane, great questions this week. We'll be right back. You're tuned into the Mountain Gardens.
You're listening to Ken Lane, a.k.a. the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week in Prescott at Waters Garden Center. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain gardens.
Waters Garden companion plants in May are Vining Akebia, Purple Robe Locust, Prescott Sunshine Geraniums, and Indian Hawthorn.
Wind is no problem for this Indian hawthorn.
Rose-colored flowers cover this spring bloomer that often repeat blooms in fall.
Dark blue berries adorn this compact bush that takes the wind and soaks up the sun like a native.
Perfect for low-maintenance gardens with virtually no pruning, ever.
Every backyard should have at least one, and only found here at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
Oh no! My pine trees look terrible!
Never fear, Plant Protector is here.
Plant Protector? From Waters Garden Center?
My Super Strength Protector destroys pine scale, bark beetle, and aphids. Just water into the soil and your trees are protected from the inside out for the year.
Thank you, Plant Protector.
You can always find Plant Protector at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You've been listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Join the conversation every week as he answers timely garden questions. Email Ken a question directly from your phone to his desktop through the web at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Now welcome back your host, Ken Lane.
I had ended the first segment with why some plants have died back. And you're seeing this through your neighborhood. But I think in between the break here, I thought, yeah, I should really try to explain that better. What happens is, and we're coming into June, where we're going to get hot. So there's this June month is actually the most difficult gardening month in the mountains of Arizona because it's dry, it's hot, and typically windy, with brand new growth coming out of your new plants, or of your old plants, just brand new growth. And so that combo, you just want to keep things alive through June. Pray for rain. We need the monsoons to come. Looking at the cloud cover, looking at the flow coming out of Mexico, it looks like it could be a good monsoon. We'll see. It typically hits the end of June, July sometime. But in the interim, you just need to keep those plants healthy. Here's why some of those plants got damaged last winter. You put a plant into the ground, and you put it on a drip system, an irrigation system, or you've got your water well around that. You use your hose and fill that up around the base of the plant. As the plant grows, it's pushing roots out way beyond the drip system, way beyond that water basin that you had. It can go out yards out into the yard. It's creeping towards the lawn and the flower beds and other drip irrigation around the yard. And so when we have a real dry year, all you have is that drip irrigation, and all those roots that were formed way out there over the decades. There's no moisture from the rain, from nature, which is really what takes care of plants. Your drip irrigation is simply a lifeline to get it through the rain events. And so we didn't have monsoons last year, and so that plant was totally dependent on your drip system. Well, if you've not tuned up your drip system over the decades, those emitters are still right there at the base of that plant. Well, as a plant matures, those feeder roots that were right there at the base, they now turn into big, chunky, barky, kind of anchoring roots. Anchoring roots are kind of like big trunks coming down from the base of this tree. You don't really see this, but it's just big. It's holding that tree upright in a windstorm. It keeps it from blowing over. The feeder roots, the real fine hairs, very fine white roots, those are the ones that pick up the water and the foods. Well, as that plant grows, those feeder roots go further and further out the drip line, or the outer branches. They kind of mirror the outer branches of a plant. So if you're still watering right at the base of that plant where all the anchoring roots are, there's no more feeder roots there, just big barky roots that don't pull water up. And then we get a real dry event. That branch, that root structure, it can take in a lot of moisture, but if we don't get that monsoon rains, it can't pick anything up. And so it's dependent more and more and more on that drip system. And so all that's left that's alive is the very base where it first started to grow way back years ago. That drip emitter is keeping just that little section alive. But those outer branches, the outer root system, the drip line, if you haven't adjusted those emitters further out to feed those new root hairs, that's where you should be fertilizing, that's where you should be watering, not at the base of a plant, but out towards the drip line, so that you can keep a plant healthy when it's really dry. And so those folks that didn't adjust their irrigation, the tops of their plants died out. Those that did adjust, they actually tweaked or tuned up their irrigation. Their plants are looking good. They're healthy. They're strong. And so that's where they're fertilized. You can tell folks that care for their plants. You can just walk down a road. I can drive down at 20 miles an hour down your neighborhood and go, yep, they're a gardener. Yep, they're taking care of their stuff. Oh, that's got to be a rental. Oh my gosh, I've never done anything with that thing. You can just tell. And it's about fertilization more regularly and then tuning up that irrigation. As we go into June, you really should cut that drip emitter off that was right at the base of that plant 4 years ago, put a T into it, and now replace it with 2 emitters a little bit further out. Go out 2, 3, 4 feet from the trunk where it was and go further out where the drip line is. In my own irrigation, I try to think, let's say a branch is going out on a big maple tree or silk tassel tree or whatever, spruce tree. I try to think that from the trunk to the outer branch, if I could put that drip emitter about halfway out that way, that seems to keep them pretty healthy. And so now you might need more than just 2 emitters at the base of this plant. This plant might need 4 or 5 or 6 because it's now so big. Some of your native plants like Arizona cypress, maybe they don't need any. Your yuccas, cacti don't need any anymore. You could probably cut it off altogether. So to go through and strategically think through that drip system and adjust it and tune it up is really good for the health of the plants. And it's going to take some pressure off of you. Reduces fire hazards, all kinds of stuff. Cleanup, pruning, just makes the plants healthier. And now's the time to do that before the heat of June comes. And then it'll also play out well for you next winter if we get another dry spell. But tune up those irrigation systems, and that's the reason you're seeing some damage out there in the neighborhood.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for timely garden advice right for higher elevations. Guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Gardening and you don't know where to start?
Water's in-home garden service comes to you and identifies what you have and how to make it better.
Design advice, water strategies, vegetable and flower gardens, soil and food needs, and problem solving. Always problem solving.
You'll instantly be a better gardener.
All for just $200 of expert time with a coupon to fill your garden dreams without ever leaving home.
In-home garden consultations from Waters Garden Center.
We can be at your home this week. Waters Garden companion plants in May are Indian hawthorn, purple robe locust, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and vining akebia.
Akebia is a super vigorous vine with dangling fragrant flowers.
She proliferates up arbors, pergolas, fences, and stunning as a ground cover to retain hills.
One of the fastest growing evergreen vines you can plant in the gardens.
You'll only find the hardiest vines at Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening is very rewarding, with a few Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts sure to turn your thumbs even greener. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we are back with Lisa Waters Lane in the studio. She comes each week. No, I was going to say garden questions. I've already done that. Just to share her garden knowledge, just what's going on in her gardens or with her gardeners that she consults with. So welcome back to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
So we should let everyone know road construction is done. They've had some major, it's like
goodness.
The gauntlet of cones in front of the Garden Center by Irons. I think they were replacing all the manhole covers.
Yeah.
And they just paved them over. They didn't, I've never seen that before, but it's all done. Lasted a few days of awkwardness, and then, so you don't have to call the Garden Center anymore and go, I'm not coming over unless it's construction's done. You now know it's done. So it's funny how people are. You put one cone up or flashing light, they just go, I don't know what to do. I'm out.
Oh, I don't blame them. And I'm not knocking the companies, but that was a little daunting to come down that road. You're like, I just want to turn left. No left turn.
They wouldn't let you turn. They just said,
know.
no one's doing anything here. You're cruising through. I've almost called the mayor going, hey, listen, really, this is not quite right. But they got over it. It was fine. I didn't have to make a phone call.
They worked fast.
They worked fast, efficient. So. They were efficient. So this is about not us complaining about road construction in the cities. So everyone gets to do that. This is about gardening and therapy. And, I got this new Nespresso machine. This coffee is unbelievable.
So
I'm so happy.
Yeah. So my question is, you get a new Nespresso machine. You take it into your office at work.
Yes, I did.
At home, we still have this old ancient Keurig machine.
Well, it brews good coffee. My machine I had here this LED screen went out, so I got one because I couldn't read whether it was cooking, brewing, self-destructing, not cooperating, or what. So I figured it was time, and we had one of those. I think when we were in South Korea. I think we had an espresso machine in the room, or maybe it was Ireland.
It would have been North
someplace. I got nothing over there. So anyway.
Pretty sure it wasn't
I liked it, so I thought I'd try it.
Yeah,
it works. I'm happy.
Cool.
I'm pleased.
I know where to come to get a good cup of coffee.
You know what, honey? You own one of the largest garden centers in the state. Feel free to buy one. Get one for yourself.
I'm too cheap.
Okay.
And I know
it's true. Gardening.
Which I'm not cheap about is gardening. I do love my plants. So, yes. So gardening. So I've had a lot of people in talking about how they want to attract more pollinators in the yard. Bees, butterflies, all those things that
hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds. The things that help pollinate. And the big hit this past week has just been butterflies.
Yeah.
And it does, I always kind of lose track of when the butterflies come through, when they show up, but you are starting to see quite a few more out there in the yard. So it's a good time to put out things that attracts those butterflies.
I agree. I saw swallowtails way early, like March, April. It was really early. Then the painted ladies, the little tiny, like half-sized ones, they have orange markings all over them. And then the monarchs show up in May sometime, typically end of April, May. And so now kind of everyone's out. All the butterflies are out. Right. So it's kind of fun to watch them. Of course, a lot of that is all about timing of flowers. Their nectar, they need a place to take in energy and flowers are their source, and then some water. They'll be in kind of mud ponds and places where they're getting water and stuff. So, and all that's available now.
Right. Yeah, I did read that if you really want to attract the butterflies in, just having a little spot in your yard that has a little really moist, little muddy spot to that. They love that.
Yeah, so are your dogs. Your Labrador Retriever will go out there and lay right in and go, I'm coming in to lay down on that new couch you just got. You happy, Mom?
That's actually our little schnauzer the other day did that. There was a big puddle out at the store, actually. And she looked at me and she just laid out and flat laid out in it and just looked at me like, deal with that, lady. I was like, oh, little booger.
But dogs are fun.
Dogs are fun.
Cats don't do that. You should become a cat lady. You're a dog lady. Never mind.
Dog lady. Our daughter's a cat lady. But butterflies, you digress. So a little muddy spot, perfect for them, but also a lot of the different flowers that you can put in. So butterflies like landing pads. You know, they're not into the tubular stuff like the hummingbirds are. They like flat landing pad flowers.
They like plaid landing pads.
So that's
say that. Yeah.
Moonshine Yarrow is
yeah.
great for that. We got some new moonshine in that is just gorgeous. That bright yellow looks so nice out in the yard. We also got one called Desert Eve Red, which is a really nice
yarrow
red.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So super plants, got a hot spot, put a yarrow in it. You got a spot that is a little drier maybe than some others. That yarrow is perfect for that.
Yeah.
The golden sphere Coreopsis, which is a really round, it almost looks like a marigold.
Yeah.
A lot of people confuse them because it's just got this really big flower to it. It's absolutely gorgeous, but perfect to put out there for those little butterflies.
And both are yellow. So yellows and blues seem to attract pollinators better than anything else. So those are both yellows that are strong. Perennials. Those are all perennials. They come back every year.
Great perennials. Pincushion flower is another really good one for the butterflies. Has that real pretty purple, nice little pincushion flower.
It looks like a pincushion. The flower does. Hovers, about 6-8 inches above the foliage.
Right.
Just kind of wavers, and you'll see a butterfly on there. The winds kind of blow them around. They're just sitting there eating the nectar.
Right.
It's fun.
Lantana is another great one. So if you want a perennial one, the Miss Huff Lantana, which is kind of an orangey yellow one. There's also Marianne, which is a yellow pink one. It's very,
is that
very
perennial
pretty.
as well?
It is.
Oh, Marianne is perennial.
I had a customer come in, I think last week, and there's this picture of this huge bush, and I'm like, well, she goes, what is that? I said, well, that looks like the Marianne Lantana. And it was down at the Chino Library.
Oh, perfect, yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Yeah, there you go. Great spot. And tough enough to take a commercial kind of setting where they tend to get neglected more.
Right.
There's less gardeners taking care of the gardens, so perfect for the Chino Library. Take a look.
Yes. Then we also have this perennial milkweed. So the milkweeds, they're not necessarily, they're laying the eggs on it more, right? It's not necessarily that they're laying it, getting the nectar out of the flowers and stuff. So we have two perennial ones. We have the Cinderella Milkweed and we have the Showy Milkweed. And those are both perennial, so they're going to come back year after year. And they go down pretty cold.
Yeah, I think minus 20 or 15 or something like that. Really cold, yeah.
Right.
And the reason they lay eggs on that is the larvae will come out and eat the milkweed, and as they eat the milkweed, they become poisoned to birds. So birds won't eat them as long as they're eating milkweed. If they eat other stuff, birds will go, oh, delicious. But milkweed turns them, and that's the reason that monarchs have a certain color, striping. It's warning to the birds going, don't eat me because I'm going to be bad. I'll give you a stomach ache right now. If you eat me right now, because I've been eating milkweed.
Right.
In fact, some of the varieties of butterflies will take on the coloration of monarchs just because, well, birds know don't eat this. So they just kind of, it's brilliant. Nature is just so smart.
Nature is so smart.
Yeah.
That is true. We also have tropical milkweed, which is a little bit showier in flower. It comes in the red and the yellow. That is an annual one, so you get one season out of it. But still beautiful, and you help the butterflies. So
you do.
Why not put
Pretty
it in?
and helping the butterflies.
Right.
That's great.
And then, of course, butterfly bush. You
number one.
You have to have that. And everybody goes, does it really? Yes, it does. So they actually came out with a new one this year. It's called a Sparkler series.
That sounds pretty.
It's really interesting. So it gets about 3 to 4 foot tall.
Perfect.
But the buds on it, instead of being long and spiky like most of your butterfly, they're kind of round and
pom-pom like.
Pom-pom.
Oh, neat. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Like a sparkler.
Right. So we have the pink sparkler right now. Really kind of cool, kind of different. So if you've done a lot of butterfly bush and you're like, God, I want something different, take a look at those because they do look different.
I like the smaller size butterfly bush because you just don't have to care for them as much. These huge butterfly bush, they'll get 10, 12 feet tall. They got to be cut back really hard, kind of like pampas grass.
Right.
Well, these new series, you don't have to do anything with them. They just keep them there and they're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Lisa, we are out of time. So great ideas for attracting pollinators, butterflies, bees, the hummingbirds to your yard. You're from Waters Garden Center. We'll be right back.
Look for more tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts through Ken's website. Podcast the show, read his weekly garden column, or follow him on Facebook and Instagram at watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com.
Waters Garden companion plants in May are purple robe locust, vining achevia, Prescott sunshine geraniums, and easy elegant roses.
Just plant these roses in a sunny spot and enjoy.
We've married the beauty of long stem roses with the easy care of shrub roses for landscape color like no other plant in the backyard.
Choose fragrant reds, radiant pinks, corals, vivacious yellows, and stately whites.
Extremely fragrant and only found locally at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
Welcome to the Mountain Gardener with Ken Lane. Gardening in the mountains is different. Listen to Ken's tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts guaranteed to make your gardens more beautiful than ever this year. Now for better advice that works locally, welcome your host, Ken Lane.
I have a big shout out. On Tuesday, I went to go speak to the Prescott Area Women's Connection. They were out at the Prescott Golf Clubhouse. I think Prescott Centennial Center is what they call that. Great facility overlooking the golf course. It was so nice, but about 60 gals got together and it was kind of like an English tea. They just dressed up, but it was super good. They had me come out and share a few garden tips. It's just they were highly engaged. They hadn't met for 18 months. So the first time, I'm honored to be one of your first presenters to that group of gals. So good. And what I was truly honored with is they allowed me to bring my 2 daughters. So Mackenzie and Kate joined me at that, just going, the next generation, the third generations of owners of Waters Garden Center. They're in training to take over the business. And so Lisa and I trained for a few years and took it over from her parents. And we've run it for quite a few decades, and now we're training our kids. It's just a huge honor. Now, these family businesses, it's not a business by any means. It's a legacy. It's community. It's we've just been here. People know us for decades. We see multi-generations coming to shop here. Their mom or father shopped here when they bought their first house, and now they're in with their kids and they're shopping for their. It's just fun to see that. That means more than just a buck going through the till. This is about it's heart and soul of the community. And so I didn't mean to go that far deep into things, but your companies, your small business. I don't say shop local. I say shop small because they give so much that's not just paychecks or keeping the local accountants or attorneys going in your community. They provide heart and soul, community, just history to their communities, no matter where you're tuned in from. Anyway, enough. Of course, I'm biased on that. I'm second generation of a small business. But going back to thank you for allowing me to bring my daughters to speak with and just show off pretty much as a proud father my daughters to the community. Thanks for having me out there. So this summer is here. I don't think we're going to see frost again, and it would be a freakish thing if that happens. But now is when the summer things really take off. There's a beautiful purple bush right now that's just starting to bloom. It starts to bloom when it's kind of officially summer or close to it. It's called smoke bush or smoke tree. It can be a small, kind of real short tree or tall bush. If you let it go, it can go up to 10, 12 feet tall, mid-teens or so. You can easily keep it down to kind of chest high or so. But in the summer, when it first starts to get warm, when we first start to see the 80s, first part of the 90s, it starts to bloom. And the flower on top of this hovers on top of this plant, and it looks really light and airy. And when the sun goes through it, it almost looks like this plant is on fire or smoking. Thus the name smoke bush. It comes mainly in purple. We'll also have a green variety and a lime green, kind of a yellow-green variety here at the garden center. But you know that summer's getting close, that it's finally warm, and it's all driven by soil temperature. At soil temperature, when it gets warm enough, it starts to bloom. You're starting to see Rose of Sharon, or it's the hardy hibiscus. You're starting to see that one bud up very heavily. It's not in bloom yet, but you know when it's starting to set buds, the soil is finally warm enough for it to take off. Figs. We've got some hardy figs here. This is confusing to some folks, especially those from Southern California, Palm Springs, Phoenix, Tucson. You're used to fig trees. Here in the mountains of Arizona, you need a hardy fig. You need one that can actually take our winters. And even then, they don't grow into trees because certain winters, this winter, last winter being one of them, it burned them back to the ground. So they reset like a perennial. Back underground, they hibernated. And now they're waiting for it to finally be warm enough. And when it's finally warm enough, you'll start to see suckers, or it will emerge. The fig leaves will emerge from the roots, from the ground, and start to grow. Once it starts growing, you can grow 6 feet in a year. I mean, it'll go from ground level to head high and load up with figs. That's why you don't see fig trees here. It just resets. You don't see crepe myrtle trees. It does the same thing. So every few years, my crepe myrtles reset. They hibernate underground, and then they come back fresh from the ground up to so they're just great big bushes instead of a tree form like you'd see in the South. Let's say Atlanta or New Orleans, it's beautiful street lined with crepe myrtles or tree form. Here, they really don't do that. It's just so rare to see that. And so that's the reason why. Certain winters reset them and they become a perennial. There's a hardy lantana that actually will grow up here, and it comes back year after year. But it doesn't operate like it does down in Phoenix. It actually resets. So Miss Huff lantana, it's a beautiful red and orange, kind of yellow type of lantana. Very hardy, loves the sun, bright, hot sun, big bush. Gets up about, just below knee high, kind of spreads out about 3-4 feet. It's beautiful and just loves the sun. Butterflies love to light on this. That plant can often reset underground. You're going, oh, I died. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then when it finally gets warm enough and summer's sort of here, you start to see it emerge again from the roots. When it does, it takes off with 3-4 feet of growth all in 1 year, just really fast. Then blooms nonstop. The beautiful thing when that happens is that they bloom actually better. They'll be loaded, just covered with flowers, covered with figs, covered with crepe myrtle, that glow in the dark, bright reds, watermelons, whites. These bright colors are stunning because it's taking all that root and putting all the energy into this smaller bush. So it loads up with more and bigger flowers. So that's kind of, watch your summer things. Another one that's just starting to bloom are desert willows. This is a plant that loves the summer. So it will start blooming now through the end of the year. And there's you'll see down towards Kirkland, Skull Valley, Baghdad, Dewey, Humboldt. You're seeing this beautiful tree up about, 15 feet tall. And it's just starting to load up with, it's called a desert willow. It's a wild native tree. You can buy them from your garden centers. It's a great one for a backyard if you want a shorter tree. And it just blooms consistently summer through fall. Hummingbirds, they love the little orchid-shaped flower. They just think they just love it. Some new varieties out. Now they've got some newer type of desert willows. We've actually come up with a strain. The native one gets a bean to it. So it'll bloom, set a bean pod, so it can reproduce itself. We've bred that out so that the newer varieties don't form a bean, which means it's not putting energy into the seed. So it repeat blooms over and over. It has more flowers, longer than the native variety. The native variety, if you've got one in your backyard or just wild growing up back there, say you're in Mayer and you just have this new, desert willow and it's starting to form beans. If you pick that bean pod off, it will instantly go right back into blooming. So that's a little trick. If you deadhead those spent flowers or the seed pods off of your summer plants, quite frequently they'll repeat bloom. Whether that's a perennial like an echinacea or a gaillardia or blanket flower, garas, all these native summer-loving types of plants, if you deadhead that spent flower off, fertilize it, it'll go right back into bloom. It's really stunning. It's because our season is so mild and so long here. When it does warm up, it's just a nice mild, which is why we live up here. It's God's country. I mean, why would someone live down the valley where it's just 110 degrees? It doesn't even make sense. That's not humanity. Without air conditioning, you'll die down there. Come up to God's country. And it just is beautiful. You can be outside, watch a sunset, watch the hummingbirds and butterflies go by, and then deadhead your flowers and watch them repeat bloom, because they like it too. All right, we got more in store for you. Don't go anywhere. Be right back.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener. If life is a bowl of cherries, why not make them the biggest, sweetest cherries ever?
Waters Garden Center is super excited to introduce our new organic fruit and vegetable plant food.
This fertilizer has the bonus of added calcium that gives fruit trees and veggies an extra boost to produce healthy, abundant crops.
Feed your plants now to help them thrive and grow more fruits than ever. And just $27 for a 20-pound bag.
Safe, natural, organic fruit and vegetable plant food only at Waters Garden Center.
Look, if your mom, wife, or mother-to-be enjoys dead cut flowers and the peace that comes when dining with all those kids, then by all means, take her to your favorite buffet, rather than some piece of plastic.
But if she really loves her garden, a gift card from Waters makes perfect sense. In reality, you're giving her 90 minutes of peace and quiet while she shops for her own flowers.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, the place where people who love their gardening moms love to shop.
You've tuned in to The Mountain Gardener with local garden expert Ken Lane. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions that are sure to make a difference in your gardens. Now welcome your host, Ken Lane.
Now just remember, if you had some damage from that cold a few days ago, just fertilize them, clean them up, and they'll come back. They'll grow fast for you. So if they don't come back within, literally days, if they're not back by June 15, June 10th, whatever, make a call on it, pull it out and replace it right away, especially in the vegetable and flower gardens, because you're into the season. If you let it go too long, all of a sudden you'll be too far into the season. You won't have time to have more flowers or time to have more fruits or vegetables. So sometimes it's just better to call, that basil really took it in the chin. Pull that out, put a new one in real quick, so you're catching up right away. So kind of do that gardener thing to them, clean them up, talk to them, play them Mozart, pray over them, touch and feel them, because they like all that. But if they look really bad, just pull them out and replace them. For $5-10, you can have a brand new one. Especially things like dill, cilantro, basil, eggplants, cucumbers. They're really sensitive. It's better just to kind of start over and get a new one, just so you're weeks ahead of the schedule of things. I would say also watch your watering. You should go walk the yard, turn that system on, manually. Just walk it. Make sure you can see that thing watering. You might even have to, if they've been in for a few years, adjust it and tune up your irrigation to add another emitter or two. So plants it's been dry, and so we really desperately need a monsoon season to take off for to keep the plant health going. But your irrigation can really get them through until that happens. And then watch your natives. Your native plants. For me, I've been taking my hose out, and I've got a sprinkler head, just a cheesy fan sprinkler head at the end of the hose. And I've gone out once a month since they've really grown. So my pinyon pines, ponderosas, junipers, and I'm watering those by hand, manually, about once a month. A deep soak. I'll let it run for a few hours. Just let it underneath there and really soak that irrigation. And my natives look really, really good. If you're not doing that, your natives probably look really, really bad. And so they're in danger of bark beetle and scale and all these different things that can happen. They're not used to going with this lack of moisture so long. And so, but you can nurture that and take care of them. And then throughout the week, Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We love talking to fans of the show. And if you want to see what we have, what the latest, so we were just unloading 2 semis of plants last week. We have got a lot of plants. We're going to have a lot of plants. If you want to see if something's available in the store, even before it goes into stock, we're uploading that purchase order into our web store. You can see it. In fact, I had someone, they ordered a triple play apple. These are 3F, really specialized, very funky. You're only going to find it here at Waters Garden Center. But there's 3 different types of apples in the same big bucket, and they're made to be companions. They pollinate each other, and then they ripen at different times. And they saw it, said, ooh, they got one before it was even in stock. In fact, our staff was going, do we have these? I haven't seen this. Where's it at? And so you can see it before anyone else. You are competing a little bit. So we had someone order, some Shasta Daisies or something. And they'd been on the sales floor for, on display at an end cap. They were beautiful in stock. I mean, just in color, beautiful. And they'd ordered one, and we just sold out because every cart, they were so pretty, every cart had one. So the folks that are in store kind of get first dibs. We've got notifications. The second you hit the pay button, multiple emails go out to the entire team. They go grab this, quick, run. So we're learning to pick them really fast for you before we run out. But that's top10plants.com. That's the web store. It takes you directly there, top10plants.com. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increase success in your landscape that just feels better, then tune in every week to The Mountain Gardener. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.
I was raised in a nice house with my family. Now I'm out on my own and have my own apartment. I love my cute little place, but there's something I do miss. I miss my mom's garden in the backyard. It was so special because over the years I was growing up, I watched her give those flowers and plants such a personal, loving touch and so much color. I miss it so. Well, guess what? I just visited my local garden center and they gave me some great ideas. And now, because of them, when I look out my patio window, I see the beautiful planter they suggested, teeming with flowers, bright Arizona flowers. Looking at those flowers gives me such a nice feeling, and it's almost like being with Mom in the backyard all over again.
Want help with planting? It's all online at plant-something.org. Brought to you by the Arizona Nursery Association at plant-something.org.
You'll love it too.
If you want a more fruitful garden, increase success in your landscape that just feels better, then tune in every week to The Mountain Gardener. Years of tips, tricks, and garden shortcuts are guaranteed to make your gardens nicer than ever. Listen to this podcast or read Ken's weekly garden column by visiting watersgardencenter.com. That's Waters with 2 T's, gardencenter.com. Thanks for tuning in.